The old watermelon capital of the world. Pageland hugs the border of the Carolinas, a small rural town of about 2,500 people. Everywhere you look around here, it's watermelon after watermelon. It's also home to the Watermelon Festival, where this small town will explode to more than 10,000 people. Over the past year, we've worked to piece together this story we're about to tell you about Tim Griffin, a man who became the face of Pageland, the face of the Watermelon Festival, and president of the Pageland Chamber of Commerce. A man who is now accused of stealing from the nonprofit that put Pageland, South Carolina on the map.
I worked on this mural up until about June of last year. A lot of this, I think people probably don't realize, I painted most of it by hand with a paintbrush. Well, I started out with this purple and blue background, and so I was going back in and adding some petals so that you could tell that they're more hydrangeas than just big blobs.
Renee Garner needed this job. She and Pageland Chamber President Tim Griffin agreed on a $4,000 price.
With a paintbrush, going in and doing lines.
Garner supplied her talent, and Griffin supplied the paint and materials. Then last spring, she left her home 35 miles away in Matthews and went to town on what was supposed to be Pageland's newest work of art.
This was going to cover half of our new roof. You know, we had a leaky roof for a couple of years, and this was going to help us get that repaired. And so, but I needed to get another lift so that I could reach the top portion of the mural. And that's when I just started getting non-response for my request, and just basically was ghosted. Really needed that income to cover these expenses for our house. I have some text messages with Tim, and you can see where he was responsive for a while, and said he would get the lift and get me the money. And then the last one was in October. He said, when I said I'm concerned I'm not going to get paid, he said he will make sure I do. And then just non-response after that. I probably have about 76 hours or something like that in that, plus the gas to get here because I'm a little ways away, but I haven't seen any of it.
As of today, how much have you been paid?
I haven't been paid anything.
Ethan, what is it with Pageland and a watermelon?
Well, Pageland's historically known for the watermelon capital of the world. Not as many now, but in years past, that was a big crop for this area.
Ethan Ford owns a few businesses in town.
One of my businesses downtown. This is my liquor store, Highway 9 Liquor and Wine. Kind of famous for the pink gorilla out front.
He's also a member of the Pageland Chamber of Commerce and part of the funding behind the mural projects.
This is a cleared check from a donation, $1,000 from Highway 9 Liquor and Wine to the Pageland Chamber of Commerce, $1,000 and earmarked for a mural.
Not long after he cut this check, Ford began to grow suspicious of Chamber President Tim Griffin. Ford got his hands on cash receipts from the Watermelon Festival, cash that was to be deposited in the Chamber's bank account.
So this is the copies of the receipts that I acquired, where I was asking the questions about this cash money being paid from Midway Rides to Chamber President Tim Griffin in cash. And this is the actual receipt, July 17th, 2021 for $7,110. And the second one is Pageland received from Midway Rides, $5,660. These were the paper trail to me to be able to request the documentation for the deposits, to be able to verify that these cash amounts were deposited in the bank.
Or not deposited. Ford also received a packet from a private investigator.
What that package entailed was that Mr. Griffin has seemed to have been going by a lot of different names throughout the years. This is an identification card that shows Timothy D. Aldridge, Dean or Deanne. The next one I have is Timothy Dwayne Griffin.
The packet also included evidence Tim Griffin is a wanted man from a 35-year-old theft case from Washington State. All right, well, these are the records we got from the Chehalis Police Department on Timothy Griffin, who was known by Timothy Aldridge back then, and the investigation found that he also had another last name of Dean at one point. Tim was the executive director of the American Red Cross's nonprofit chapter in Lewis County, Washington, when he left this letter in the office and abruptly resigned in 1989. The incident report shows the board chair told police the day Tim quit, he took 2 checks and made them out to himself, stealing $1,400 that day. And the case file also contains these pictures of the Red Cross's Cadillac, a car Tim later admitted to stealing. Now, after Tim resigned, the Red Cross audited its bank account and found this. It's a list of checks the Red Cross labeled unauthorized that paid for Tim's rent, utility, child support, furniture, and multiple other purchases marked as unknown. So all in, prosecutors found Tim Griffin took $12,000 from the American Red Cross and charged him with taking the nonprofit's Cadillac. The sentencing sheet shows Tim Griffin pleaded guilty. The judge sentenced him to 6 months in the county jail and ordered a year probation and to repay $12,000 in restitution. But within 4 months of sentencing, Tim Griffin's probation officer said he didn't do anything the judge ordered, and the judge signed a bench warrant on him. Tim Griffin has been a wanted man ever since. Coming up.
I'm sorry for whatever has happened.
This isn't a mistake. This is a continued problem that has been going on for a very long time.
Ethan is about to back me into a corner where I have to come out fighting. I don't go down without a fight. I fight back. With me, I with you.
When Rotten continues after the break. We first met with Pageland Chamber of Commerce President Tim Griffin at last year's Watermelon Festival.
This is Watermelon 1. I'll be sending Big Daddy Matt down to PYG to pick up some coolers and the hog log.
Sometime after his Washington state conviction, Griffin made his way to the Carolinas before settling in Pageland. In 2015, he changed his name from Aldridge Dean to Griffin, his husband's last name.
If you're doing next, we'll see on the duty bar.
At the time, I could not confirm anything about the Pageland Chamber's expenditures and had no way to obtain them. As a private nonprofit, its spending records are not public records. Only board members and Griffin had access to them. I'd heard the suspicions and needed video of the festival and Tim Griffin in case we ever got our hands on those records.
Fixing to walk in the Chamber of Commerce office, Pageland, South Carolina, and ask them why they won't give us a copy of the board members or other information that we requested.
Ethan Ford spent weeks before the festival, along with his attorney, demanding Griffin provide copies of the Chamber's board meeting minutes, spending records, and its tax forms.
You got me a list of board members?
That I can give you.
What about the minutes?
Our secretary is preparing a packet for you.
What about the 990s?
Well, we're heading up to Dennis here in just a little bit, and we sent a certified letter asking for them. So that has us a little concerned.
Griffin also claimed he was ordering an audit, but Ford says that never happened.
So this is what I would say the case file.
A week after Ford recorded that meeting inside the chamber office.
Ethan is about to back me into a corner where I have to come out fighting. He's going around to all of my board members, asking for them to ask for my resignation. We're trying to get all this information. Oh, God, he's wanting every minute. He's wanting all of our accounting, which we're trying to get for him.
Griffin called Jordan Sidham Ethan Ford's best friend. Sidham was Chesterfield County Sheriff Cambo Streeter's major at the time.
Are we the best bookkeepers in the world? No. The chamber doesn't make any money, and he's making some heavy accusations, trying to get me. Here's the deal. If he backs me into a corner, you know me, Jordan, I don't go down without a fight. I fight back. With me, I with you. If you have any pull with this man, everyone just stop. Everybody just stop. Because it's ridiculous. I have got such a huge social media situation. It could get ugly, and I don't want it to get ugly. I don't want to have to go back to the old Tim ways. I don't. Baby, Jody Barr will be down here up in everybody's business.
Yeah.
And we don't need it. And I don't want it. I don't want it, but I don't want them to continue to harass me and come after me.
I feel like that it was a Hail Mary in desperation to try and do everything he could do to influence me to stop, because he knew what I was looking into that I would find everything that we have found now.
Last August, in this Facebook post, Tim Griffin announced his resignation. The following week, Ethan Ford filed a theft report with Pageland Police and later met with the State Law Enforcement Division asking for an investigation. SLED agreed to investigate. This picture shows the following month a SLED agent talking with Tim Griffin in Griffin's driveway. It's evidence SLED was doing something with the chamber investigation. What was the word from that agency as far as what they needed to move forward?
I think some of the conversation led me to believe that SLED's idea was that they needed more PC or probable cause.
Ford does not have subpoena power or the power to get a search warrant, but SLED does. Although SLED would not act then, Ford had one more way to get those chamber records.
They told me they were looking into it and that they were going to do some investigation, but I felt like that they weren't as committed as I was to getting to the bottom of it.
By mid-December, the Pageland Chamber Board disbanded, and despite the open SLED investigation, Tim Griffin sold his Pageland home and moved 1,000 miles away to Tulsa, Oklahoma. That same month, Ford hired an attorney and filed a lawsuit asking the court to dissolve the Pageland Chamber. One of the court's first acts was allowing Ford access to the chamber's spending records.
This book to me represents a year's worth of diving into allegations that people had.
Through subpoenas in the civil case, Ford obtained 3 years of bank statements and 4 years of Amazon purchases using the chamber's bank card. The bank records showed nearly 100 cash withdrawals totaling $50,000 from this ATM in this downtown Pageland bank. There are no records showing what the cash was used for. The records also showed Tim Griffin used the chamber's bank card at this Charlotte area Porsche repair shop. Griffin's name is on the invoice, along with a vehicle identification number.
I'm Tim Griffin. I represent the Chamber of Commerce and Economic Development.
Griffin owned a Porsche Boxster at the time. It's the same car Griffin got out of in this confrontation with a YouTuber last year. We know it's the same car because of the VIN plate the photographer recorded in this video.
I'll walk all day with you. I've got no other thing to do.
The VIN was an exact match to the invoice. Well, the Porsche shop invoice shows the total bill was $12,452. The shop owner confirmed Tim Griffin used 2 credit cards and cash to pay the bill. $4,000 was paid with credit cards. $2,000 of that was paid with the chamber's debit card, and that left around $8,000 in cash. I then looked into the cash withdrawals from the chamber account. From May 2022, the month Tim Griffin got the estimate for his Porsche repair, through July 2022, when he finished paying the invoice off, Griffin withdrew exactly $8,000 from the chamber's bank account, which was the exact amount of cash the shop says Griffin paid on the balance of that repair bill. This wasn't the only chamber money linked to the Porsche. Amazon records show the chamber's money was used to buy a $40 bottle of Porsche touch-up paint in the same color as Tim Griffin's car.
But there is quite a bit of money that we can account for, and it's accounted for in the wrong way.
Meaning
there was money used, there was substantial amounts of money used for personal gain that I'll never be able to understand why Mr. Griffin thought he could get away with this.
The Amazon records show the chamber's card was used to buy multiple orders of men's intimate wear, lubricants, men's clothing, costumes, and even accessories for a Ford truck, similar to the make and year model of the one in Griffin's driveway the day that SLED agent made a house call.
You know, this is the chamber members' money. This was never Mr. Griffin's money. This money should have been accounted for. I believe that there's a lot of money that we're still not going to be able to account for, even through our investigation.
Coming up, you were the treasurer, you're the money guy, the tax guy. Why would a president of this chamber have any reason to draw that kind of cash out of the account?
I have no idea.
Where did the money go? I think that's a great question for Mr. Griffin. Where did the money go?
When Rotten continues after the break. All right, it's almost 9 o'clock and we are going to Mr. Anderson's tax office, Anderson Associates. We worked to track down every Pageland Chamber board member we could find to ask them what they knew about the spending. Not a single board member we contacted agreed to talk with us, except the owner of this Monroe tax office, who is the former chamber board treasurer, a man named Dennis Anderson.
I've been doing tax returns for 30 years.
Anderson was the chamber's tax point man up until the final 9 months of Tim Griffin's tenure. Anderson stepped down at the end of 2022.
During COVID, you didn't have any in-person meetings or anything like that. And then 2021 was the first year that we were kind of somewhat back to normal. I kind of expected to start getting notified of meetings, but I didn't get notified of any meetings in 21. And I was in 22, when they got through the festival and they didn't have any meetings at all, and I wasn't being notified of it when there were any kind of board meetings, that was when I decided that since everything was nice and calm, and that, as far as I could tell, there was no dust cloud at all for any kind of issues, I took and resigned in December.
We showed Anderson what we found in those bank records and Amazon account, including the $50,000 in cash withdrawals, the sex paraphernalia, men's clothing, and the Porsche repair. Anderson says he remembers Griffin told him the top automotive charge in the bank account was for a car show for the festival. He didn't know it was a repair shop until we showed him that invoice during our interview. Why would a president of this chamber have any reason to draw that kind of cash out of the account?
I have no idea.
Would you consider any of that as a board member expenditures related to the chamber?
If I would have seen those invoices, I would have said no. But I never saw those invoices or those shipping receipts for those items. So I had no idea that that's what it was.
Anderson told me the chamber's financial problems started in 2019 when the board gave Tim Griffin that bank card.
Which is not the best choice for controls. And after that, that's when he started doing the little ATM withdrawals for the cash. And I was always told that that was just to where it was easier for him to have the cash to pay for chamber expenses. And he always told me what those expenses were for, either verbally or through email. And he was the one that was supposed to have the receipts.
Did you ever see any invoices connected to these?
No.
Did you ever ask for them?
I didn't really have much need to, I thought, because the board was not asking me any more details either, because I never got notified from any of the other board members wanting to know more information about anything.
You had no reason to doubt him?
I had no reason to doubt him at that time.
The chamber had a 7-member board that was supposed to oversee spending. That included Dennis Anderson, and those board members knew it.
We got the Pageland Chamber of Commerce bylaws. The board of directors shall have control and management of the property and financing of the organization and shall approve all expenditures. However, expenditures of a routine and incidental nature may be made by authorized members.
The bank only required one signature because that's just their rules. But the chamber had always had the rule that you were supposed to have 2 people to sign any cash disbursements out of the checking account. And in 2019, when they got the debit card, well, you don't have to have, you don't have 2 people show up to sign the receipt for the debit card. So, and I had no idea what was being done with it except for being told that, oh, that was expenses for the events that the chamber put on at the time.
Do you regret at this point taking him for his word and not asking for?
Of course. I mean, hindsight's always 20/20.
The one person who would know is Tim Griffin, but after multiple attempts to interview him for this report, he will not explain any of this. If you had the opportunity to sit down in front of Tim Griffin, knowing what you know now from these documents, what would you say to him?
I actually need to see those dang receipts, and I want you to bring them to me now. And we could take and eliminate this question of where this money went. Because at this point, it's still kind of a thing of, well, we don't really know where it went because we don't have any records other than it came out of the bank account. We need to actually see the proof as to where it is. And he's the one that got the emails as to what they all purchases were and received the actual mail down there at the chamber. So he's the one that has all the access to those.
And all the answers to the questions.
And the answers, yes.
How often do you think about this job?
A lot.
Although she'll likely never be paid for her work on this mural, Renee Garner still hopes to finish the job. You think some people would look at this wall and say, this says more about you than it does anything?
Yeah. Right now it's just my name associated with it, right? And so I told a lot of people I was working on a mural in Pageland. They're gonna wonder why I didn't finish my mural in Pageland.
Here we are now, having to look at somebody and say, there's no money here to pay you for what you did. Where did the money go? I think that's a great question for Mr. Griffin. Where did the money go?
After a week of trying to reach him, Tim Griffin finally responded to my messages, telling me he'd send a statement, but that statement never came. A major development happened in Ethan Ford's civil case against the Chamber this week. The Chamber is now suing Tim Griffin, accusing him of stealing the money we just laid out in this report. The lawsuit claims Griffin abused his position as president of the Chamber by misappropriating tens of thousands of dollars, and he used the money for personal use, and that Griffin held a reckless indifference to Chamber property in the years-long practice of misappropriation and malfeasance. And Griffin engaged in self-dealing of Chamber funds and assets, and his conduct was reckless, wanton, and with complete disregard to the rights and interests of the Chamber and its members. The Chamber wants its money back and wants a Chesterfield County jury to try this case. And that SLED investigation into the Chamber and Tim Griffin we told you about earlier, it's now a year old, and SLED tells me it is still open and ongoing.